What's up, folks? Today I want to talk to you a little bit about how you know to make a change when you're fishing a grass mat. Say you're throwing a toad and you're getting a blow up every once in a while, but they're just not hooking up. Do you stay with that, or do you make a change? Or you're throwing a frog, you're getting a few blow ups. Do you stay with that frog, keep covering water, or do you make a change?
He's out of Jackson, Missouri. His name is Gabe Montgomery on the Coinder side.
That's a fat one there. Look at that. Looks like it's got eggs in it.
How about fifth place? Just over $1,000. They had 1961. Greg Glad and Gabe Montgomery. Good job, guys.
That didn't take long. Another punch is good. Okay, here's some of my rules of thumb on this situation. If I'm throwing a toad, a lot of times I'm throwing this rivet. Black is a good color. This is just a rivet made by Stanley. This is a really good buzz toad. There's a lot of good buzz toads out here. That's just one that I'm kind of fond of. If I'm throwing a black buzz toad and I'm getting a few bites on it, they're really not committing. First thing I'll do is I'm going to change colors. If I've got a black, I'm going to go to something that's kind of in between. You know, sometimes that's an orange. Let me back that up. If I've got a black, instead of going to a white, which is the other extreme, I'm going to go with something that's kind of in between. Sometimes this grayish, silverish bottom, sometimes it's more of an orange or a bluegill pattern. But I'm going to throw that for a little while, see if that makes a difference. If that doesn't work, then I'm going to go to straight white. And if that fails, it's time to switch. So instead of going to a completely different setup, maybe it's just the action. The buzz toad has got a pretty good, gurgling sound. It's a lot of commotion. So if I still think I can get bit on something that's moving across the top of the grass, I'll go to something a little more subtle. And that's usually the horny toad for me. It's got a lot more of a finessey presentation. It's got these little bitty, the little bitty flippers on it compared to more of the bootlegs. This puts out a lot of commotion. This is real subtle. So I'm going to make the switch from the buzz toad to the horny toad, and I'll probably just go with white or black on that, because you're going to know really quick if that's the right change. So if that doesn't work out, it's quite possible they don't want anything moving horizontally across the grass mat. Then I'm going to go to a frog. Okay, so I'm going to start out once again with the black frog, and a lot of times I'm using this popping frog. This is just a Spro popping frog. This is a great frog. Start out with a black again. That's not producing. I'm going to go to like a bluegill color, which will be your yellows and your oranges on the belly. Then if that's not producing, I'm going to go to a white. And this is a Terminator popping frog. It's a really good frog. And the sky color dictates a lot of this too, but you never know. Tradition says when you got high bluebird skies, you throw a white, and when you got overcast, you throw a black, because it produces a shadow against the clouds or whatever. But that's a rule of thumb. Most of the time, in low light conditions, I am going to be throwing black, but that doesn't always hold true. So you got to mix it up. Even though your mind's saying something, you got to let the fish tell you what they want. So a lot of times when they won't hit something moving across the top of the mat, they will hit something that's stationary, something that's kind of sitting there, and you can kind of twitch and just let it sit, which, that's a hollow body frog. So if that's not producing, if I'm still getting some bites, and I know the fish are in the mats, but they're just not wanting to come through the mats and get that frog, that's when you got to go to a punch rig. Hands down, it's time for the punch rig. And for me, that is usually a beaver. I I fish a beaver quite a bit. You've heard me talk about it. It's just my go-to bait. I got a lot of confidence in it. So 3/4 to 1 ounce tungsten weight with the beaver. And I don't vary my colors too much. I'm usually going with a green pumpkin, or, you know, this is a D-bomb, but it's a similar profile. Or I'm going to go to something that's black and blue. It's pretty dark underneath those mats. So black and blue, or some kind of a green pumpkin. You know, that's my deal. I keep it simple. If the bite is really tough on the punch rig and I can't get bit on a traditional size bait, I'll drop down to a speed crawl, or I'll go with this BB cricket, which is made by Gambler. This is a good little bait. Caught quite a few fish this year on this bait. It doesn't look like much, and it's not much, but it catches fish. You can also go with a Magnum finesse worm too. I was kind of playing around with that a little bit. I think David, who's a subscriber of the channel, he recommended that not too long ago, and I put it to work, and it does work. It's kind of a little secret, sneaky thing. Another bait that I've been pitching around a little bit is this man bear pig. It's more of a creature bait. You know, it's kind of brush hoggy, just a creature bait. It works really good too. So that's the main scenarios and how I would go about making the switch. Now sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you're punching and you're going through good mats and you're seeing those fish sitting up on top of the grass and you're spooking them. You're getting too close. They see that weight and that bait come over the top of their head. And this happens a lot in the fall, you know, or it'll happen in the early spring and stuff. And you're just not getting the bites on the punch rig. Sometimes they're wanting to react. Sometimes they're sitting right up at the bottom of that mat. That punch rig goes right by them, and they won't grab it. They just let it go. So that's when you need to throw something over the top of their head and cause them to react. So how do I know when to go from a punch rig to a frog or a toad? If I'm going through an area and I'm seeing bait in the mats, and I know there's fish in the mats, and I keep punching and it's just not happening, I'm going to pick up a toad, typically something that I can cover a little bit more water with, and I'm going to throw that toad for 15 minutes or so. I'm going to go with whatever my confidence color is. I'm not going to worry too much about color. I'm going to just cover some water and see if I can get some kind of reaction. You usually know pretty quick, and it's kind of an aha moment. You're going, man, I spent an hour punching without getting a bite, or just very few bites, and pick up that toad, and right off the bat, I'm getting some reactions to these fish. So that's usually how I play it. And if I still think that something over their heads is the way to go, that's when I'll go back to a frog. And you got to play around through the course of the day. Fishing mats takes a long time. You got to cover a lot of water, and you got to figure out the mood of the fish. If you're in a good area, you've got a lot of activity from the bait fish. You want to find an active mat. You want to hear the little, the bait fish. A lot of times they're just little shore minnows or pin minnows or small bluegill, shad. They're sucking on the top of that grass. You can hear it. It sounds like popcorn. You want to find that active mat, and when I find an active mat, I have confidence that there will be fish in there. So that's kind of my litmus test area. I'll go through that cove or that pocket or whatever, and if I don't get bit on one bait, maybe we'll circle back around and go through it with a different bait and try to figure out as fast as I can what kind of mood the fish are in. That way I can take that information and that knowledge and try to duplicate it in different pockets throughout the lake. If I know that the bait, or if there's bait in the back of Cove 1 and Cove 2 and Cove 3, I go to Cove 1, circle it, fish it a few times, and if I can get some kind of reaction on the bait, then I'm going to go to Cove 2 and Cove 3 and try to reproduce that pattern, see if it works for me. So anyway, guys, I hope this video helps you. A lot of times it's just a judgment call, but I'm just sharing some of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years. The correlation between the toad, the frog, and the punch rig. It's usually not cut and dry. It's going to require a little bit of experimentation, but once you figure it out, you can have some really, really fantastic days. And I'm throwing the frog and the toad and the punch rig around the same times. Water needs to be in the 50s on up. Usually it starts in the post spawn after the fish have started to move out onto the points and into the grass mats, and they're feeding up. That's when I'm starting to do these 3 techniques, and it goes all the way into the fall until the water drops back down into the low 50s. You can still catch them 49, 48, 49, but I mean, last year I caught some fish on a frog in 49 degree water, but typically 52 and 53 is when that frog bite and that puncher bite kind of starts to go away. So, hey, appreciate your time. Subscribe if you haven't. Share it on your Facebook page. Hit the thumbs up button, the little notification bell. Anytime I have some more content coming out, you'll be the first to know. And I really appreciate it, guys. Until next time.